The 19th century was a time of great change in all of human history. It was a time of rebirth and renewal as great minds emerged with the explosion of knowledge brought about by the surging demand for education, the rise of printing, and the proliferation of libraries. All these resulted to a greater sophistication and learning as societies around the world moved from shared oral culture to individual reading. Even newly discovered colonies and territories, such as the Philippines, though deemed backward and primitive compared to their colonial masters, basked in the glory and benefits of this Renaissance as Filipinos, for the first time, were acquainted with powerful new mediums of information, such as newspapers, books, journals, and many others, ushering in a golden age of literacy. However, such renewal would not have been possible without the emergence of a great institution, which was to play a significant part as enabler for a new generation of Filipino thinkers and doers.
Del Pan, the so-called Decano de la Prensa Filipina during that flimsy colonial period, started out as the editor-in-chief of the resuscitated Diario de Manila in the 1860s and the pioneering Revista de Filipinas in 1875, both owned by Manuel Ramírez, the former printer of the old UST Press, and Baltasar Giraudier, the popular lithographer at that time, the tandem behind the publishing firm whose history is now being published by Vibal. Said publications, edited by Del Pan, were stalwarts in nascent Philippine studies and libertarian ideas, and rightfully greatly contributing in what the present publication is trying to mark, the Renacimiento Filipino, the Philippine Renaissance.
The founding of Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier, or IRG, in 1858 came about when noted typographer and outgoing University of Santo Tomas Press Regente, Don Manuel Ramírez y Carvajal, and Catalan-born artist credited by some as the very first lithographer in the Philippines, Baltasar Giraudier, teamed together to usher in the production of modern knowledge about the Philippines. It was a partnership that would last for almost 3 decades. The success of IRG as a publisher and printer in the late 19th century was built upon the people behind it, apart from the assiduous duo of Don Manuel Ramírez and Baltasar Giraudier. Most notable among the staff were eminent writer-editor Jose Felipe del Pan, Francisco de Paula Martinez, and Manuel Garrido. And there were a host of other writers who were responsible for the rise of IRG as a producer of knowledge and one of the primary proponents of literacy in the country. Like most printing establishments, IRG did not possess a monumental roster of publications in the beginning. In fact, their initial efforts were not above the mundane and consisted mostly of religious matters, mainly reprints of catechism books, government notices, and some school activities. For many decades, their patron base did not go beyond the ecclesiastical and government variety. However, IRG did publish some outstanding works of Filipinismos, or nascent Philippine studies, during its inaugural period. History was made by the firm on its first year with the maiden issue of Ilustración Filipina on 1 March 1859. The publication focused on local conditions and were distinctive for its wide-ranging coverage of various aspects of the Philippines. The succeeding years saw IRG create a diverse catalog of publications ranging from religious treatises and catechisms in various languages, commercial statistics, royal decrees, custom regulations, and benefits of employees in the colonial government. In 1860, IRG was instrumental in the republication of two excellent regional dictionaries, namely Diego Berganio's Vocabulario de la Lengua Pampanga en Romance, and Jesuits Juan Noceda and Pedro Sanlucar's Vocabulario de la Lengua Tagala, compuesto por varios religiosos, doctos y graves. The following year, a new and liberalized Diario de Manila, under the charge of Ramírez and Giraudier, was made available to the reading public of the capital, becoming its most popular newspaper. It was hailed as the greatest paper published during Spanish times, and with one exception, enjoyed the longest life of any Philippine daily established up to this time. The firm also republished Francisco Balagtas' famous corrido, Florante at Laura, pinagdaan ng buhay ni Florante at ni Laura sa Kahariang Albania, kinuha sa madlang kwadro historiko o pinturang nagsasabi sa mga nangyayari ng unang panahon sa Imperyo ng Gresya at tinula ng isang matuwain sa versong Tagalog.
The firm was also responsible for that unbeatable illustration Filipina, Florante at Laura by Francisco Balagtas, the republication of dictionaries and grammars in various Philippine languages, including those of Fray Diego de Berganio in the Pampangan language, and hundreds of titles that greatly contributed to the ushering of the Ilustrado and Intelligentsia class, like Inawa Rizal, Plaridel, Isabelo de los Reyes, Anacleto del Rosario, Mariano Ponce, and others. Thus, my present project with Vibal is focused on the production of knowledge and what we call intellectual development of that period through publications in the experience of the publishing firm, which is now mostly forgotten, the Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier. This is a topic that the Vibal Foundation and myself believe is very much lacking and wanting in Philippine colonial scholarship.
Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier had a successful run for almost 3 decades that saw the firm accomplish more than its fair share in the propagation of literacy throughout the colony through their various publications. However, like all good stories, the IRG tale was moving towards the inevitable curtain call. The end came with the passing of the two founding partners. While it is not known exactly when Don Manuel Ramírez died, noted 19th-century biographer and writer Wenceslao I. Retana recounts that he expired way before his partner, Baltasar Giraudier, who died around mid-1888. The final stretch in the life of Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier happened between 1884 to 1888. The firm was transferred first to the widow of Don Manuel Ramírez, and later to a company headed by Don Luis R. de Elizalde. In 1887, IRG was renamed as Imprenta de la Viuda de Ramírez, suggesting it had become a single proprietorship after more than 3 decades of existence as a partnership. The following year, the firm became known as the Establecimiento Tipográfico de Ramírez y Compañía. This is the imprint it would carry until the Philippine Revolution and its aftermath. Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier is not a household name by any means to many Filipinos today. Its existence in our not too distant past has been, sadly, lost to collective amnesia whether by neglect or by design. This enabler of an entire generation of brilliant Filipino minds, which resulted to the propaganda movement and ultimately the Philippine Revolution, has not been given the sacred space it so rightfully deserves in our history and national consciousness. Hopefully, all this is about to change with the release of Vibal Foundation's Imprenta de Ramírez y Giraudier, a story of late 19th-century Philippine intellectuality by author Lino Dizon. This book is a reminder to all of how one Spanish firm, within a period of merely 3 decades, stood as a beacon in the country's dark past and almost single-handedly erased the shadows of ignorance and brought forth illumination to a people desperately searching for redemption. And of how a simple partnership between 2 kindred spirits resulted to an avalanche of learning, starting with but a sparkle of hope that ignited the flame of freedom and ultimately culminated in the birth of a nation.